Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 105. I'm recording this actually pretty early compared to when I usually record. I woke up really, really early. I woke up at like 2 a.m. today because I'm trying to fix my sleep schedule because something happened and it got all screwy. And it's affecting me because I've talked about this before, bad sleep is the number one killer. It's the worst. It just saps all energy and motivation and ability to focus. It at least out of me. When I went over to Kat's, the other day, she was tired too. She was feeling sleepy, or eepy as she calls it. And we made breakfast and then took a nap for like 2 hours, and I woke up and that nap was like, the only way I can describe it, it was a hard nap. You know what I'm talking about? It was one of those, it's like I woke up from it and I was like, damn, I need a cigarette after that nap. It was one of those. God, I feel crazy after that. And then hang on. Well, I'll get to that in just a second. And then we watched some movies. I'll talk about in a moment. But before that, we have one single question to get to from last time, from Ryan. Left a comment last episode. Bunch of shit about the Flash. Oh yeah, so this comment reminded me that when old Flash goes back after he changes the past, he goes forward in time again, right? But for some reason he ends up in 2013. Why didn't he just go back to like the present? Why didn't he go back to like 2023, let's say, when this takes place? I'll just assume it takes place modern day. Why did he go back to 2013 specifically? Was it so we could have Man of Steel happen? Why did any of that happen? What? Yeah, so also added some extra context from the original Flashpoint comic. He says, the electrocution scene seems directly lifted from the Flashpoint comic with no context. In the book, Barry's consciousness supplants his alternate universe version's body, meaning he is this rambling lunatic with no powers, telling everyone that everything is wrong with no evidence. The scene where he is electrocuted represents how much conviction he has to convince Batman that he's not crazy, being electrocuted and doused in chemicals multiple times. Overall, it's strange to me that Flash's first live-action movie is the adaptation of Barry's entire character arc with 30 years of history resumed after 20 years of being dead. Just watch the animated version of Flashpoint instead. It's really good. Hell, even CW Flash has a better Flashpoint. Ironically, the show has a cameo from Ezra Miller Flash, from a scrapped version of the film where Cyborg takes him time traveling and different dimensions. I don't know. Sentence got weird at the end. That's really funny. I imagine that was based off of like a previous version of like one of the 6 scripts that made the final film. Unfortunately spoiled on Nick Cage's Superman months ago. I was never going to see the film in theaters, but I would have popped so hard for that. Every other cameo seems useless. Even Spider-Man No Way Home uses past actors to show resolution or progression of character arcs for characters that never got it before. Yeah, I thought that was a decent choice. I think No Way Home, for being another multiverse story that's trying to sell me things, did it pretty good. At least it justified. Like, if you're gonna sell me something, at least like justify it by having making it worth it. Not a question you need to answer next pod. Oh, but I will. To pad time? Oh, I will. Would you consider making a club in SF6 for the Cellar? I feel like you have enough fighting game fans to justify it. Yeah, it's funny. I feel like I don't have that many fighting game based videos on on the main channel. I always say this channel like I'm. Oh, technically we're on Cellarcast, not the Cellar. I feel like I don't have that many fighting game based videos out of my whole. I have like 50, almost about 60 videos now in like the main Cellar series, and there's like what 4 or 5 maybe of those. There's like the original one I made on like Guilty Gear. There's the Art of Guilty Gear. There's the Shinkaro video. There's the Daigo versus Lupe video, and I made like 2. Okay, that's 7. That's the Weird PC Fighters, but those videos never really did that well. I don't know why I just happened to attract over the last 3 years in like 60 videos or 2-ish years, right? 3, whatever, 2.5, let's say, in like 60 videos, I happen to have attracted a weirdly high number of, well, 1, South American people, and 2, fighting game people, which I find kind of funny. I guess like attracts like. Is it the music? Is it because I use a lot of fighting game music? I don't know. Well, would I make a club? Probably not. It just seems. Maybe should I? I'm not in a club. In 6. Excuse me. Maybe I'll think on it. I usually I'm very anti. I'm never gonna make a Discord server. I'm never gonna do something like I'm never gonna make an official subreddit or something like that, or anything along those lines, because that's just a huge bother. It's just so much work, and I don't want to. You guys can go make one of that. You guys can make like a subreddit or a Discord server that's like unofficial, but I'm not moderating that. I'm not taking responsibility for the weird shit you get into. Hey, speaking of Ezra Miller and groomers, hey, that video, that podcast, I never check the analytics for the podcast, because I don't really care. I just put them up, and then I only see the analytics when I log back in to this channel to so that I can upload the next one, and I get to the landing page of the YouTube Studio interface. And I just see how, I'll just glance at the views or whatever. The last one was the best of the last. It's 1 out of 10. It's the number 1 out of 10 of the last 10 videos, last 10 podcasts, which is really funny. I've kind of had this game where if I have the opportunity to, I like to make the titles as off-putting and as off-putting as possible and weird. What are some of my favorites? Well, so the last one was Ezra Miller can groom infinite girls in infinite timelines. Dora keeps talking about breeding and it's making me feel weird. The anime fan wine mom theory. What if we had an argument in a hotel room for 109 minutes? Lil Wayne hate crime bars. Let's see, what are some other weird ones? The Fast and the Bi-Curious. Sick kids equals sick COD clips. I always saw Shaun the Sheep as a black guy if he were human. David Cage will not make your parents respect you. I'm just reading these in order for the most part. The Kane approaches Ubisoft. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite Cellarcast podcast episode title has been. I want to know. A non-consensual viewing of Wednesday. Lord God, bless unto me thy gayness. Jeff Keighley is the Griffith of gaming. All my homies shoot up extra chromies. That one got 74 views. That's really high for this channel. The one right before it. League is an abortion dumpster and I was a hungry rat. Did biting do Guilty Gear? Goofy white boys drinking bleach, the anime. I hope this Mario has human scenes. The Rube Goldberg Chainsaw Massacre. Oh man. Can I title this Femboy Holocaust? Which that's the highest viewed podcast. What the fuck? I need to name these crazier things so that more people will click. Maybe it's working. Maybe it works. Um. Which, by the way, the context for that title, the reason it's called that. Well, one, I was talking. That was the episode where we talked about Bridget. And the conspiracy theory of like the incredibly small minority of femboys on Twitter who are convinced that there's like a femboy holocaust or like a genocide. They call it the femboy genocide. There's people who unironically believe that like there's some conspiracy to turn femboys into trans women, and that they're people are trying to convince them that they can't wear a skirt and not be a woman. I really wanted to call the episode the Femboy Holocaust, and then I was like, can I title it that? So I'm like, let me make a concession. I'll title it the question. So I'm not going to fully commit to calling it the Femboy Holocaust. Yeah, I have enjoyed making. Oh yeah, I really like how I had my Street Fighter 6 roster immediately followed by the actual Street Fighter 6 roster. Anyway, yeah, for some reason the podcast with like the most off-putting weird titles seem to get the most views. What are the highest viewed ones? Yeah, Femboy Holocaust, the Street Fighter roster. Keiji Inafune kind of sucks, not gonna lie. Yeah, maybe, yeah, huh. Some of them have, the ones with the weird titles always get like 10 or 20 more views. Fury, does it fart? Anyway, yeah, maybe I'll make a club for Street Fighter 6, I don't know. Alright, next thing I want to talk about. So, what we watched on Friday or whatever. No, we did not continue the Nickelodeon marathon because I don't know. I think so. There's this one. What's the movie that she really doesn't want to see? That the wheel landed on it, so we're kind of like obligated to go to it next. But what is it? Let's look up Nickelodeon movies. It's some like weird live action thing. Yours, Mine, and Ours. She doesn't want to watch that one because it's like the next one up. So we decided, hey, let's break it up. Well, she decided because she controls my life and everything about me. She's actually standing right behind me at this very moment. That's why I don't do face cam for these podcasts. This cat is always behind me with a baseball bat, just kind of like tapping it against her hand. So that I say the right things about like Scott Pilgrim or something like that. So she said, we're going to break it up with another trilogy. We're going to watch all the Lion King movies except for the remake. Because there are 3 Lion King films, those being Lion King 1.5, and Lion King 2. These Kingdom Hearts ass names. So we just watched 1 and 1.5, and she was like, no, we should. She said that, okay, so the weird thing is that 1.5 came out after 2. 2 was like a straight to video film, and then 1.5 came out around like the 10-year anniversary of the first film, 94 to 2004. So it's weird, and I was like, let's just watch 1.5 in the middle, because well, it's 1.5. How am I gonna know what happens in 2 if I don't know what happens in 1.5? You know, it's like Kingdom Hearts. Lion King 1.5 HD remix, final mix 2.5. What's some other dumb 385 over 2 days, whatever. So we watched Lion King first. And it's kind of funny. Lion King is one of those movies that I feel like I've seen a dozen times as a kid. Okay, it's just one of those like, we need to reward the students with something. Let's watch a movie. What do we watch? Lion King? It was like Lion King and Toy Story. Those were the 2 movies when I was a kid in school, in like elementary school. That was like These are the ones that we wheel out and we're gonna put up on the class projector. So I've seen it all these times as a kid, and it's so saturated. It was such a huge movie. It's such a cultural presence even today that I'm kind of desensitized to it. But what's funny is that I haven't actually seen it in probably like 10 years. Just about. Maybe a little less than that. But like, yeah, I mean, 10 years ago I was 11. Probably that was around the time we stopped watching it in class. Around the time I went to middle school. So like, I haven't seen it with my new adult, technically adult eyes. And I forgot how good this movie is. I was very surprised. It kind of felt like I was watching it for the first time in a lot of ways. Just because I was able to appreciate a lot of the stuff. It's a really well-constructed movie. The writing is really good. I really like... Okay, so I noticed at the very beginning, in like one of the first scenes, right after the big when it's the first scene with Scar. It's where he catches the mouse and then he's about to eat it, and then the birdie guy comes in. He's like, the mouse or whatever, or no, he lets it. He spooks him and the mouse gets away. And then Mufasa comes and he's like, hey, Scar, my brother. They're establishing all this stuff, right? Scar, my brother. I'm the king. I'm the Lion King. You're my brother, Scar. You weren't at the Simba's presentation, the big event. And Scar is like, ugh, and they're establishing, okay, Scar feels a little jilted by the fact that Simba's birth means that he no longer has any right to that. There's no chance he's getting the throne as long as Simba's, in the picture. He would have been the heir if Mufasa died, and now Scar basically has nothing to do in his life. He's just a fixture. He's just a royal fixture in their little lion, savannah society. And Mufasa knows this. He's a wise king. He's that kind of archetype. So he gets this, and Scar kind of like starts walking away from him, and he's like, "Rah." And Mufasa gets a little upset, and he says, like, don't turn your back on me, Scar, in like a very literal way. Like, literally, don't show me disrespect and turn your back on me, the king. And then Scar says, you should think twice about turning your back on me, which is such a good fucking line, because to Mufasa, it's a double entendre. To Mufasa, Mufasa interprets that as Scar is upset that he feels like I've turned my back on him, like I've left him behind by having a son. Scar feels betrayed by me, which Scar is, but the other meaning obviously is Scar is saying, don't turn your back on me because I'm gonna stab you in the back. He means it in that way. It's two different metaphors. And I immediately picked that up. I mean, obviously, I know what happens in the movie. I immediately got that. I was like, that's a really good line. That's a really well thought out, clever line. And you can totally see how crafty and literally two-faced he is. You have it's up front, Scar being two-faced. He's got two. He's saying one thing that Mufasa interprets, but he really means another. Under the surface. It's great. There's like this through line throughout the film that I really like of it's like a symbolic thing with Simba's roar. I think at the start of the movie there's like I think it's in the I Just Can't Wait to Be King during that music sequence where he says like he's working on his roar or something and he gives this little that's my impression. This little baby ass roar. This little squeak. And then when they go to the elephant graveyard, and they get cornered by the hyenas, Simba gets up to roar, and he roars, and it's this huge thing, but it's not actually him, it's Mufasa. So Simba, there's this like symbolic thing now of like, okay, well Simba, he's as a person, or as a lion, as a character, he's still too young, he's still too immature. His dad is pretty much like supporting him. Like his dad is this huge support. His power comes from his dad, right? And then after that, the stampede scene, the part leading up to that. This is another thing that I totally forgot about this, just because I haven't seen it in so long. The specific way that it happens is obviously do I need to put a spoiler warning for the Lion King? Shut up. Mufasa says like he takes him to the valley, and he leaves him because he's gonna go tell the hyenas to trigger the stampede, right? And before he goes, he says like try and work on that roar, and he leaves. Simba gets off the rock, and he gives his best roar. And then the stampede starts, and he thinks that it was him who did that. I totally forgot about that detail. So he thinks that he's at fault. So now the roar that he's attempting, this like thing that he's under the impression that he can't control his I don't know, his power or something, if you want to phrase it like that. Like he has an amount of personal power, and trying to use it recklessly, kind of like he did when they went to the elephant graveyard, is what triggers his dad's death, as far as he thinks, as far as he is aware, right? That doing that is like ruinous. Completely ruins his life. And then by the end, when Simba discovers that it wasn't actually his fault, it wasn't actually his roar, his like personal expression of himself that killed his dad, and Scar gets yeeted, he goes to the rock and he gives a big roar, and it's the first time he gives the big roar. And it's like now he has fully come into his own. He is fully matured. He's overcome his struggle. He has taken his place as the king. He's completed his archetypal character arc. Really good. I was like, wow, this is a really well-made little movie. So much so that there isn't like a whole lot to say about it in a lot of ways. I guess I'll talk a little more. There's probably actually a lot to talk about, because there's a lot of like just, I don't know, nice little details in the film with stuff like that. Oh, I love the setups and the payoffs, where like, so at the beginning there's this whole thing with him and Nala, where they're like play fighting as, like little baby, what's the term for, I guess, cubs? Lion cubs. As cubs, they're just playing, right? And she like pins him. They do like play fighting, and she pins him every time. And in that context, it's just like a friendly, like it's children playing. And then when they're older, and they reunite after Simba runs away, they do a reenact. They have a quick brawl when he defends Pumbaa from Nala, and she wins and pins him down, and now it's like a sexual thing, which I think is kind of funny. Of like the it's like a way, it's just like it's the same action, but because of their ages and where they are in their lives, it has a totally different context and feeling to it. Like, and it's all just being, and they never have to point it out. They just like, oh, she pins him down. Now it's like there's kind of like a different element to it, right? And it just happens. And it's this really like subtle way to establish where both of these characters are and how they relate to each other. It's really good. It's really good. if there's like one thing that I would add, maybe this is, I wonder if there's like a missing scene or something like that. The bit after Simba runs away, I kind of wish there was like 30 seconds of him running in the desert or something like that. I wish that there was a little longer of a sequence of him escaping and growing tired and hungry and running up against exhaustion. Just because it's kind of a hard cut to him just like just slumped in the desert, and then Timon and Pumbaa showing up, and that's when their part of the story begins. And it's like all that stuff is fine. It's just a little. It's like as a tone shift. I kind of wish they'd spend literally like 30 more seconds on it. To convey that a little stronger, because it's a really hard shift into like, it's a lion, it's a lion, and then Timon is like, jeez, Pumbaa, be careful, be careful where you carry him in, you're gonna scratch the mezuzah. And speaking of, it totally went over my head, and this is something that's more it's a lot more present in 1.5, but Timon and Pumbaa are absolutely like two gay dads. Like it is really funny to me now looking like, oh, it's just Simba's he just got adopted by two gay dads, and they're raising him over the course of like I don't know how long it takes for does it take for a lion? I don't know how fast lions grow. How fast do lions grow? Adult lions are between 3 and 8 years old. Oh wow, that's really fast for how big a lion is. How long until a cub becomes a lion? Yeah. Wow, interesting. So yeah, I guess let's say they spend like 4 or 5 years raising him. And what I want to click on, they're just his two gay dads, and there's nothing like, they never imply even a hint of like anything romantic between Timon and Pumbaa, but it like they're just friends, but also like it's two guys raising a kid on their own. Like that's what it is. I don't know. I'm surprised I haven't heard more about that. It feels extremely allegorical. Anything else about the movie? Music's good. Music's fine. I don't know. I'm not like a huge, super big Disney musical guy. That love song is boring. Just like the melody is boring. I don't. Can you feel the love tonight, or the love's in the air tonight? I thought that's like, plot wise it's fine. I just think that the song is boring. I couldn't imagine listening to that on my own time. The melody is so weird. It's like, it's like, it's too long. It's like weirdly protracted in odd places. I don't know. I wasn't into it. Be Prepared has kind of become that song that like in my mind it's been like inexorably linked to like millennials on the internet. Like they love that song, and rewatching it now again with clear fresh eyes, I'm like, this is a good song. This is a very good musical song, literally like a thing in a musical. Just thinking about the fucking. Should I move on to Lion King 1.5? I don't know. But yeah, no. Lion King is like an extremely tightly written film there's so many little setups and payoffs that there's probably stuff that if I rewatched again, I might even pick up on that I didn't realize. It's a very, when I say tight, it's also a very short movie. It's like 90 minutes. Excuse me, it's like 80 or 90 minutes, something like that. It does not drag its feet, its paws, I should say. It's very like one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. And it all feels, everything feels like it flows very organically. One thing that I realized, I remember like thinking it was kind of weird as a kid how once Scar takes power, the whole Pride Land just turns into like a wasteland. But now as an adult who understands like ecology to some extent, I'm like, oh, it's because the hyenas, he brought the hyenas in and there were too many predators and he fucked over the ecosystem. There's too many predators and they ate actually, it would probably be more accurate to say that probably more accurate if it was like overgrown or something like that, because they ate all the herbivores, all the prey animals, and then because that's what happens in real life, right? Hang on. What happens? Yeah, let's look this up. What happens if there's too many predators in an ecosystem? Predators starving and dying because they can't find enough food. Yep. As predator populations increase, they put a greater strain on the prey population, act as a top-down control, pushing them towards a state of decline. That's a pretty good metaphor for Scar's tyranny, actually. What the fuck? Studies indicate that the roles of each may become reversed to the point that prey begin to eat the predators? Huh? Where is... using data collected using mink, muskrat, gyrfalcon, rock ptarmigan, and phage vibrio cholerae relationships, research was done to determine if a theory proposed by the Georgia Tech researchers could explain how and why this occurs. Wow, that's crazy. They can just start eating? Coevolution. Yeah, there's a paper by Michael H. Cortez and Joshua S. Weitz from 2014. Coevolution can reverse predator-prey cycles. Huh. Could these horses be like eating wolves and shit? Oh wait, there's a whole Wikipedia article, Predator-Prey Reversal. A biological interaction where an organism one type is where the prey confronts its predator and the interaction ends with no feeding. Two competing predators may interact and a larger predator will prey on the smaller. Interesting. Smaller organisms may prey on larger organisms. Changing population densities may trigger a role reversal. In addition, adult prey may attack juvenile predators. Huh. Examples in nature. Changing population densities. Let's see. Marcus Island has a large mussel population and almost no seaweed or rock lobsters. Milks. Burnapina. What the fuck does that mean? Also have a large population density at Marcus Island. Rock lobsters brought to Marcus Island were quickly consumed by the whelks, which outnumbered them. This interaction showed a role reversals between a prey species, the whelk, and a predator species, the rock lobster. They devoured them? What does a whelk look like? I don't think I know. What the fuck? It's like a snail? They're like a sea snail. They ate the lobster? How the fuck does that thing eat a lobster? Look up a whelk. W-H-E-L-K. How do they eat a lobster? That's insane. Anyway. Yeah. Wait, what was I trying to find out? Oh, yeah. Could something like the wasteland happen? from the Lion King if there's too many predators. Let's see. I'm pretty sure like the opposite is actually more true for causing like plant life to die out. That's been a thing in like certain parts. I remember watching a thing in high school. They showed us about an ecosystem, and it was like, yeah, so we like shot all the wolves in this forest, and then there were way too many elk, and the elk just started eating everything. They just ate it, and the plant life just went into a tailspin. Let's see. Wildfires and forest fires take many animals. Oh my god, get to the point. Why is this random answer on Quora suddenly turn into like this guy's prepper rant about, I have prepared in a small way, but if Yellowstone ever blows, I will be toast, and the ensuing days may lead us into the 6th mass extinction, and there's nothing we can do. What the fuck are you talking about? That got way off topic. Anyway, maybe the Lion King thing could happen. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's a good movie. I totally see why it was such a big hit. It's like, wow, this is just a really good film. I remember hearing that it's like Hamlet with lions, and I heard that like before I read Hamlet, and then after I read Hamlet, when did I read Hamlet? I think sophomore year of high school. So after I read Hamlet, it had been too long since I'd seen the movie, and I was like, was the movie like this? And now seeing it yet, no, it's not really like Hamlet very much at all. It has some illusions. It's got like the whole, like the core conflict is like Hamlet, but Hamlet has a lot more going on. That's not Lion King. Lion King is like a very, very like condensed, stripped out version of Hamlet, if it is at all. Yeah, and that leads us directly into sort of Lion King 1.5. So this was a straight to DVD film, and you hear the name Lion King 1.5, and you're like, this movie has to suck. Like, there is no way a movie called Lion King 1.5 that's straight to DVD isn't like a huge piece of shit that has no reason to exist. What, and you see Timon and Pumbaa on the cover, you're like, oh, this is just a big piece of shit, isn't it? And then Kat was like telling me that she watched it a lot as a kid, and it was actually really good. And I was like, okay, well, you also like Wednesday. I didn't say that. I'm like, okay, well, she says it's good. Let's at least give it a fair shot. So we watched it, and Lion King 1.5 is way better than it has any right to be. It's called Lion King 1.5, and I actually really enjoyed it. It is a very weird movie. It kind of like shouldn't exist in a lot of ways. How do I describe it? It's extremely unnecessary. It did not have to exist. It did not have to be made at all. It is not crucial to the Lion King plot. It's just, okay, so here's what it is. The Lion King 1.5 is a story about, it focuses on Timon and Pumbaa before, during, and after a bit the events of The Lion King, the original. And it's kind of like a big fucking joke. It's like a big parody of The Lion King. Like, they're mocking it constantly. But it also feels kind of like it was made with like care. Like, people actually liked working on it. The movie looks weirdly good. It doesn't look like a cheap piece of shit. I was looking at some screenshots of Lion King 2. That movie looks like a cheap piece of shit. Lion King 1.5 is actually pretty nice to look at. So the idea is, it's like, where did Timon and Pumbaa come from? How did they meet? What were they doing? There's this whole bit about how they were actually in The Lion King the whole time, not just their segment, like after like the stampede scene. They were actually, hanging out around the plot and just never fully in view. Including, okay, so let's just go from the start. So the idea, is this going to be spoilers? Why not? It's Lion King 1.5. Do you care? So the main character really is Timon. Pumbaa's like a supporting character. He doesn't really have much of a character arc. He's more of like a static character who just informs Timon. Timon has the real development in the film. So the idea is Timon is a meerkat, and he's living in a meerkat society. They kind of make, I think it was in the first movie. I think this was in Lion King, where they said that they were both outcasts or something like that. Which, like, to further add to the gay thing, to the allegory thing. Happy Pride, guys. Whoa, wait, hang on. Pride? Lions? Whoa, hold up. Whoa. Dude, Pride rock. Dude, Pride rocks. And they reveal what those things were. Well, you always knew Pumbaa was that he make big smelly fart. But Timon, it's that he lived in his little society of meerkats, and he's like a big fuck up, and he fucks everything up all the time for everyone, and ruins their tunnels, which is the one thing that they care about in life. And when he's put on sentry duty, he slacks off so he can sing a song, and then the hyenas like from the Lion King, the same 3 hyenas show up and almost eat everybody. So a couple notes. Number 1, the meerkats are Jewish. They go out of their way to make the meerkats Jewish. There's like a reference. Fuck, what was it? There's like one really explicit feeling reference, and then there's just other things, like they say oi, and then I'm like, what is Timon's, like, his hair, like, Timon's hair with like he's technically all hair, right? But he's got like, the bit on top, like the red. I'm like, is that supposed to be a yarmulke? And his little ears that are like low down. I'm like, is that like the side, like, braided hair? Is Timon supposed to be like a Hasidic Jew meerkat? Is that what this is? Is that what he's supposed to be? Hasidic Jewish rapper coming to Grenville. I'm just looking at pictures of Hasidic Jews right now. So I'm like, they do have that hair, right? Yeah, they do. Who is this guy? I didn't realize that they grew their hair into like these little hats. That's really funny. Like their hair is the hat. The hat is the hair. There's a couple guys really, really growing it out. It looks like when you like trim shrubbery into shapes. Anyway. So he's like a Jewish meerkat, and that's why when I did an impression of him earlier, I made him talk about the mezuzah. And so he fucks everything up. Also, his mom is played by Marge Simpson, the voice actress, not the character. She's Marge, and it was obvious within like one line. I could tell it was her. And so he fucks everything up, and he's like, I think I have to leave because I'm such an outcast fuck up. So he goes and leaves, and then he meets Pumbaa, and he's like, wait, are you telling me that your farts are so big smelly that no one wants to go near you, including predators? This would be a very useful person to have as a traveling partner. So they start traveling together, And I almost thought that it was going to go like way harder in the direction of, my kind of thoughts was, oh, is this going to be like Timon doesn't value Pumbaa as a person, and then that's going to be a big conflict. And then by the time we get to, the events where they find Simba, all that's going to be over. This is just like a backstory thing or something like that. And no, it's actually not that at all. They have very little conflict in this film. It's a very, it's not it's a very inconsequential feeling movie in many ways, where the Lion King is telling this big epic story about murder and assassination and a boy becoming a man and political back crossing and tyrannical, like this really, it's really trying to tell an important feeling story. Lion King 1.5 is constantly breaking the fourth wall, where they literally pan out, like they zoom out, and they show Timon and Pumbaa, Mystery Science Theater 3000 style, like as silhouettes sitting in a movie theater. And apparently Kat told me that was the direct reference that they were making. It is an MST3K framing. They are watching their own movie and making comments about it and pausing and rewinding and like fast forwarding certain bits and I totally forgot the joke about Pumbaa being into like weird sex things or something like that. I think that was in The Lion King, where he says like, yeah, people didn't like it when and then Timon was like, hey, not in front of the kids or something like that. Like they were doing some freak shit, behind the scenes. So there's like this weird framing device, and they're constantly fucking around and not taking it seriously. And then so what the movie really turns into is a big gag reel where they are going through The Lion King in the background and messing around and having they just happen to be everywhere during The Lion King, just out of view, just off camera. And the part that like sold me on this film, yeah, I think I like this movie. The part that sold me on this film is when they're doing actually there's like one cool thing. So Timon gets visited by Rafiki the monkey, and Rafiki does his like, oh, I'm a wise monkey, I'm going to give you wisdom. And he says like, look beyond what you see. And Timon like takes it literally. And he looks out over the horizon and he's looking at stuff. And he sees like the... Wait, is that when this happens? There's a point in the film, like really early on. It might be when he's looking out of I think it is when he's looking out in the distance. But there's this super... No, wait, I think it's at the very intro. When you're at like Pride Rock, and then they zoom. Yeah, I think that's what it is. They zoom way out, and to like where the meerkats are, and it's this tracking. It's this like super tracking shot where you're starting there, and then you start rapidly zooming out, and like the landscape is flying by you with like pretty detailed. I imagine a lot of it was CG. But I've like never seen a shot. And it lasts like 10 seconds or something, where you're just flying at this breakneck speed over the landscape close to the ground, seeing all this stuff go past in pretty good detail for how quickly it's moving. And it's a really cool shot. It's genuinely a really cool shot. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like it in an animated film or a film in general. Really unique, cool bit of cinematography and storyboarding. And then like you stop dead on the ground, and then a meerkat pokes their head out. Really cool. Like, oh, that was neat. That feels like someone had a cool idea for a shot, and they put it in the movie. So like, he looks out over the horizon, he sees Pride Rock, and he's like, oh, maybe that's where I should go. That's the furthest thing I can see. So he's walking, that's when he meets Pumbaa. And then they walk a little bit more, and they're getting to Pride Rock, and they are running right alongside the humpadada, 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 and all the animals are gathered. And in the movie, when everyone like bows their heads, and it's this big reverent, it's practically like a biblical scene, like the presentation of Jesus or something like that. That's basically what's going on. The sun, I mean, fucking Mufasa has this whole God parallel where he's in the clouds and he's talking. I watched this scene, I'm like, oh my god, some hip Catholic school teacher in the religion class has used this scene as to talk about an allegory for God to relate to the kids and stuff like that. I'm like, there's no way it hasn't been done. So what's happening is they're walking through, and Pumbaa's like, I really don't like crowds. Oh geez, I get a little nervous when I'm going through a crowd. And he's so nervous that he makes big stinky fart. And the fart is so bad that all the animals start passing out. And it's revealed that in the Circle of Life sequence from the original Lion King, the animals are not bowing their heads in reverence. They are passing out because they smelled Pumbaa's big stinky fart. That's what's happening in that scene. I couldn't believe it. It's so awesome. It's so fucking funny. And disappointingly, there is very little like recontextualization in the rest of the film. I really wish the whole thing, I wish it went harder on that stuff of just fucking ruining the Lion King. I think that's so funny to have the Lion King this like massively successful, one of their biggest films of all time, incredibly like culturally huge, iconic film. The soundtrack did numbers. It has a musical on Broadway that's been running for forever. It's 10-year anniversary, and for the 10-year anniversary, you release a straight-to-DVD piece of shit that just fucks with the whole movie, that just takes a shit on it. It's so goddamn funny, and I say that as somebody who actually realized that I really like the original Lion King. I think that's so funny, and I wish they'd gone harder with it. But most of the movie is actually just them adding just a parallel storyline to the Lion King. So, oh geez, there's too many people here. Let's go find a watering hole. Actually, there is a little bit more. Let's go find. They find this little watering hole. They make little beds. There's a funny joke where Pumbaa has been very sweet and he's made 2 beds. There's a little one for Timon and a big one for him. And then Timon just doesn't even hesitate to jump into the big one and take it for himself. And Pumbaa has to fit in the tiny little bed. It's this little like grass bed he's made. It's hilarious. There's like one more thing where, so if you recall, during the Can't Wait to Be King sequence in the original, the point of that sort of was that, Timon and Nala want to distract, what's the bird's name? I forgot the bird's name. They're trying to distract Bird Guy so that they can sneak off and go to the elephant graveyard, and they have that big musical number, and then at the end, there's this big animal pile up where they're like jumping across all the animals during the whole thing, and then all the animals, like someone trips, and then everyone just topples over, and Bird Guy gets stuck underneath them, and that's how they manage to slip away to the graveyard. They reveal that Timon and Pumbaa figure that like their what would you call it? Their place is the place they found the little watering hole. It's actually too crowded. There's like animals just walking through, so they're like, we have to find a new place to settle down. And they end up like inadvertently causing that animal pile up. So they are actually in some way responsible for the film. For a major part of the film happening. Hey, you know one scene I liked from the original Lion King? I really liked the scene where after the elephant graveyard bit, where Mufasa is talking to Simba, and he's like really stern with him. He's really stern, and he's like, you know, he's like really responsible, and he's like, you know, it wasn't just that you put yourself in danger, you put Nala in danger. That was like super uncool of you. And Simba's like, but I was trying to be brave, and Mufasa's teaching him the difference between like being brave and being a goddamn idiot. And he says it nicer. He says like, I'm only brave when I have to be. You don't like, I don't want to just cause problems and start shit, because no one wants that. Starting shit is the worst. Don't cause problems that don't have to be there, Simba. And he really lays it on for a bit, right? For like a little bit. And then you can tell that Simba like gets it, and he puts his head down. And Mufasa realizes, he knows at that point, he's like, okay, he gets it. It's been enough, you know. And ultimately, like, you know, he says like, it was the reason he's so angry is because he fucking loves Simba. It's because he loves his son, and the idea of him getting hurt is like terribly fearful for him. And he says it's the one thing he's afraid of. And Simba's seeing this other side of his dad. It's like this crucial side of Mufasa that Simba has to see before Mufasa dies. Like, if Simba had not had this conversation with him, I think it's like really doubtful that he would have turned into the character he is by the end. Mufasa basically just gives him a crash course of like, what is the mindset and philosophy you need to have to be a good king? And then after that, he kind of just starts joking around, and he's like, yeah, well, I really showed those hyenas, didn't I? And then he kind of perks it, and he's like, okay, it's all going to be good. He learned his lesson. It got a little hairy, but he learned his lesson. It's a really good scene. I liked it a lot. Anyway, what the fuck are they talking about? Oh yeah, and then so after that, it's basically just, hey, we're going to go look for a new home. Let's walk through the Lion King for a bit. And they stumble into like Scar's cave during the Nazi march. Like, oh hell nah, Pumbaa, we oh hell nah, Pumbaa, we're in Charlottesville. And they're like, we gotta get out of here. These guys are weird. And then they eventually find the home, the area that they're in. When they find Simba, and then they adopt him, and there's scenes of him growing up. You get a little bit of Simba as like a teenager, and I really don't like it. I don't like it at all. The voice, which is weird. Hang on, I gotta look this up. Lion King 1.5. Cat says that it's the same guy. Matthew Broderick. Jerry Stiller plays Timon's uncle? Really? That's funny. Yeah, Matthew Broderick. He is Simba in the original. Dude, I don't know what it is, but Matthew Broderick, he's 5'8". What a little guy. He starts talking, and I hate his voice. It gives me the fucking heebie-jeebies. It's like gross. I don't know what it is, because I didn't have a problem with adult Simba in The Lion King, but for some reason in this film, his voice just, I do not like it. It's, ooh, I do not like it when he's teenage Simba. Maybe I don't know if he's like doing something with it, because then when he's older later in this same movie, it's fine again. But I don't know what it is, but I did not like that. I did not like that at all. And then then it's just like the conflict is so there's a I was actually glad that the movie so the only conflict that exists in the film is Simba leaves and Pumbaa's like, we gotta go help him, and Timon is like, I think I'll just take a nap here because I'm a lazy little meerkat. And Pumbaa's like, wow, that's not cool, we raised him. And he's like, no, but like he's gonna go be a king? That's not Hakuna Matata. That's Hakuna fucked up. And Pumbaa's like, huh. And he leaves. And then I'm really glad that they didn't do it. It wasn't like Shrek where they linger on it for like 10 minutes and it's this whole big part of the movie. Timon spends maybe a solid minute, maybe 30 seconds thinking about it and then decides to go join Pumbaa. Cause like, yeah, like they do not even pretend like it's there just to have a little character arc for Timon, for him to, I don't know, value his friends or something, or like, I don't know, it's so whatever. And then they go do end of Lion King stuff, but in the background where it's like, oh, they were fending off the hyenas and stuff like that. There's this whole sequence in the middle. When I say that like the whole movie's like a big piece of shit joke, there's this whole scene where they're like, it's where the whole bit where they're still looking for their home, for a new home, and they're on like a little stream, and there's like a waterfall that is like the most predictable waterfall. I'm like, oh, okay, it's gonna be a waterfall at the end of the river, isn't there? And like, yeah, there is. And they're like, so they start falling and screaming, and then they pause the movie so that Pumbaa can go to the bathroom, and then he takes like an extra like 30 seconds to go get like extra food, and he comes back with more food, and they have an argument over like, they have a little squabble over the food he got. I was like, the movie does not want you to have investment in it. It is a big piece of shit, and it's having fun. And when I say it's better than it has any right to be, I really do mean it. It's like the most lovingly crafted joke that shits all over the original, in the best way. And I really appreciate it. I actually like it quite a bit. I think Lion King 1.5, and it's really short, it's like 70 minutes. Lion King 1.5, shockingly good. Yeah. So after that, that was all that we watched. I guess we're going to watch Lion King 2 next time, which is, I'm sure, going to be really fun. I want to talk a bit, hey, you know what I got really into instead of sleeping the other day? You know what I spent like 4 hours figuring out, like, in the early hours of the morning? Federated social networks. So remember how, like, when Elon Musk bought Twitter and people were like, fucking, we gotta start finding an alternative. And maybe during that you heard of a site called Mastodon, or a thing called Mastodon is like a Twitter alternative. And then maybe you looked at it for 1 second, you go like, I don't know. I did too, just as out of curiosity, because I'd heard about it. I heard it was something Federated. I didn't know what that meant. I tried to look up some articles on it, and nothing really like explained it in a way that I think I understood it, but not really. Just randomly, because of the whole Reddit blackout, because of the API thing, you might have heard about it. There's a bunch of useless fucking internet protests going on at Reddit right now, and that will amount to nothing. But it has caused more interest in alternatives. namely alternatives that get away from large central businesses owning an entire social media, owning an entire public forum. And that's where federated social networks come in. And I actually put in the work to try and understand it, and I think it might be the coolest thing I've ever heard of, ever. So, let me sell you on the federated internet model. Here it goes. And mind you, I'm not a guy who cares about new stuff or trendy things, and I don't care about technology, which I think I've established before. I don't care about technology. All technology besides medical and like environmental things could halt tomorrow, and I would have no problem with it at all. I'd be 100% content. I don't have to go to Mars. I don't care. I want to sit and play video games. So, here's the idea. So, let's walk through the process. So, the idea begins with someone is like a coder. Let's say I am a developer, right? Excuse me. And I want to make an alternative to Twitter. So I write the code for a social media website. Twitter is called a microblogging website. That's what it's classified under. I write the code for a new microblogging website similar to Twitter, right? And then I release that code as a package on GitHub, making it free open source software. Then anyone can take that software and download it and use it to make their own server of, let's call it Cellar World. Sure, let's call it Cellar World. And you can make your own Cellar World server with its own like URL. Let's say I take mine and I take my own software and I make Tigen dot Tigen dot I'm trying to think of something funny. Vin Diesel. Yeah, Tigen dot Vin Diesel. So that's funny, right? All right. I make Tigen.Vin Diesel, and that is my server, also called an instance. And people can go to that instance, and they can make accounts on it. You can make your little at BigBoy92 on Tigen.Vin Diesel, which is built off of Cellar World. Okay? Now, you're like, okay, so what's the point of that? Anyone can make a little server, but so what's the big deal? Where does it go? Here's where it goes. So other people can take the same software, make their own servers. Now here's the cinch. Here's what makes everything connect. So you guys know, I'm assuming everyone listening to this has an email. Well, you know how you have, like, for instance, a Gmail account, right? An @Gmail account that's on the Gmail email server. Gmail email. But you can still send and receive messages. You can still send and receive emails to non-Gmail accounts. You can send things to someone who has an Outlook or a Yahoo, or people who have their own, like, personal email servers. You know, I knew people who would have, like at the Robinsons or something for their family. They had their own family email server. That's because email servers can be built using so-called protocols. There's, I think, 3 main email protocols, and pretty much every email server that you'll ever run into is going to be using all 3 of them. Protocols are basically, I guess, in simple terms, they're like systems for sending and receiving information. Now, I have built Cellar World. I've coded Cellar World using to use a protocol, which in this case, we're going to use the real term here and not like dumb example names I've come up with. ActivityPub is what it's called, the ActivityPub protocol. That means that anyone who makes a Cellar World server can interact with any other Cellar World server. Interact meaning you can follow someone who's on a different server. You can see their posts. You can like them and repost them, retweet them. And as soon as anyone on your server interacts with anyone from another server, that server, that instance is now indexed by your own, and it'll start showing up in like your global feed, and you can like, you can be recommended posts from those people, for instance, if you choose to like go on that feed. Now here's where it gets really, really good, okay? Here's where it gets crazy. I've been talking about one single software this whole time, Cellar World. But say someone else wants to make something that's similar to Reddit or another different, microblogging, Twitter-like platform. Well, with a little bit of work, as long as both of those softwares are using the ActivityPub protocol, they can be made cross-compatible, or just one-way compatible. Not all of them are cross, like two-way. They can be made cross-compatible, meaning that you can be on your Twitter feed, where your Twitter feed, and be seeing posts from subreddits that you follow, for instance, that kind of thing, which is like really trippy. And if someone, so let's say you're on, so let's start using the real terms now. So the two main Twitter alternatives, I guess, or two of the main ones that I know of, are Mastodon, which if you've heard of any of these, it's probably that, and Pleroma. Now, so what I did is I found I can make an account on Pleroma, on a Pleroma-based server, and then I can search for people who have Mastodon accounts, or accounts on Mastodon-based servers. A little complicated, but, stick with me. I don't think it's that crazy. And I can follow them, and I can see their posts. You can see, so it's not actually two separate competitors. It's not actually two separate softwares effectively. Like for the user experience, it doesn't have to be two separate softwares with two different user bases. It can actually be one cohesive thing because they're both using the same protocol and they've been made cross-compatible with each other. So I can follow a Mastodon account from my Pleroma account. I can't log in to a Mastodon server because I don't have an account there, but using my Pleroma credentials. But I can still follow and see those posts from Pleroma with the Pleroma interface and everything. Isn't that cool? Isn't it fucking cool? And so here's the other thing. Here's where it gets, where in effect, as a comparison to the current model, I am really interested in this. So all of these, okay, a lot of people when they were first, I think, heard about Mastodon, including me, I thought it was like, okay, I'm on the Mastodon website, like mastodon.social is where you'll probably find. No, Mastodon is not a website. Mastodon is a software upon using which, Mastodon is a software you can use to make websites. To make a Twitter type website and run that as as a server. The reason it's called the biggest federated instance is called mastodon.social. That's because it's the closest thing, all like Mastodon dot whatever. There's a Mastodon dot XYZ or something. That's the closest thing to an official Mastodon server. It's run by they're usually run by the developers. So here's the other thing. We're gonna get into the upside then the downside. All of these servers are privately owned. They're owned by just whoever starts them and who is the admins, right? And the servers are paid for by those people, meaning that there's no ads. There's no advertising on any of these. See, traditional social medias, all the big centralized social medias, Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, I guess, YouTube, they all have to be supported by advertising. And I probably like other stuff, but mainly advertising, and also venture capitalist dollars at a loss, universally at a loss. Investor money at a loss, government subsidies at a loss. With federated networks, you don't have. Imagine taking the server maintenance costs of Reddit or Instagram or Twitter, and instead of being, one single company having to foot the bill, you're spreading the cost across like 1,000, maybe hundreds of thousands of people, of different server admins, and you realize like individually, not that expensive. If you have a little bit of hobby money, some of these servers will take donations. If you care, I can imagine that maybe some of them will eventually have advertising integration, but it's not necessary. It's not necessary to offset the cost. It's for a lot of people who have the drive to begin a server, it's probably pretty sustainable for them to pay probably $10 or less a month for at least some of like the smaller type ones. Like I can't imagine running a Twitter type microblogging thing is that crazy expensive. I haven't looked at the pricing yet. I did see that there was there's a software for basically making a podcast platform, making a podcast based server like for audio content. It's called like Podcasto or Castapod, something like that. And server cost, like the most basic plan is like $3 a month, and that gives you like unlimited audio uploads, which is crazy. Like I can't imagine this stuff is that expensive. So it's way more sustainable. It's way cheaper for people than there's no ads. So then we get into like some of the potential downsides or hazards. And to be fair, there are some, but I think a lot of them are things that already exist with traditional social medias. So, for instance, servers are not owned by a big company, right? It's not a big corporation. Servers are just owned by individual administrators, like a small team, perhaps. Obviously, because, it's the, giving power to the people. Oh, no, giving power to the people. Oh, wait, people can suck. That's absolutely possible. But I'm also thinking, how different is that from... Excuse me. I'm like, how different is that from just, the current landscape? Is it that crazy different from some kind of, power-tripping mod on Reddit or, horrible YouTube customer service that treats you like you're the scum of the earth and fuck you for even trying kind of thing? Is it that much worse? And you actually have the upside of you can choose where you create your account. For instance, the one that I made a little account just to try it out on a Pleroma based instance called it was called FGC.network. And I check it. I've checked it a few times every day just to keep up. I'm not a poster. Hang on, I'll get to that in a second. And I did that because, well, one, it's like, okay, it's like a fighting game community focused thing, obviously, from the name. But it's also, when I just looked into it for a second, it started by, it was founded by the same guy who founded and maintains the Super Combo Wiki and is the current maintainer of the Mizumi Wiki. A guy called Shiba Zoo or something. And I was like, okay, well, if there's anyone who's going to, I feel like I can trust to maintain a server, it would probably be these guys. Probably be these people. Because they run very well-made community wikis for fighting games. I feel like I can trust this a little bit. Because that is the danger that, like, well, someone can just close a server, right? Close an instance, and everything's gone. It's all gone. Your account is gone. A lot of these don't have, like, super easy account migration. I think the only one that really does is Mastodon, where you can move your account to a different instance. So there is a little bit of, like, you know, there's some risk involved in investing into a community that could potentially just shut down tomorrow. At the same time, again, how likely is that? As if you choose a decently sized instance, probably not that likely. It's equivalent to, like, okay, well, you know, Reddit headquarters and all of their all of their backup servers around the world, you know, sinkholes open up underneath them and they're swallowed by the earth. The main, you can still, even if that happens, you will probably, if you've posted stuff there, you've probably lost a lot of it. It can't be recovered, but it's not like the service as a whole is gone. You can still make an account on another instance, and just continue on from there. I'm hoping that in the future, most of these will have ways to migrate your account. I think that would be really useful. And hey, if you're on a server, so the other thing is like, okay, well, unreasonable admins, they've blocked. So you do have some control as an admin over what communities you can interact with. So you can have a filter list, basically a blacklist of, like, okay, anyone who comes from these places, anyone who has an account on these, instances, just will not show up even if we have, like, a point of contact. They will not show up in, like, recommended feeds. They will not show up in the, like, known network tabs that some of these have. A lot of them will have, like, 3 different tabs, one for people that you follow specifically, one for posts just from your local instance, and then one that's like the global one from every single posts can be from any server that anyone on this server has interacted with ever, kind of thing. So if there's just like the way that works is that, like, if you're on, like, even a mid-sized server, you probably have contact with, like, or exposure or connection to, like, most of the network. All you need is one point of contact, and it's indexed, right? Yeah. So, like, there's potential for that. You could, and if you don't like that, you can make an account on a different server that doesn't have those, and then just follow there. Just follow those things there. You have a tremendous amount of freedom as a user over what your experience is like, and which, I mean, God, so there's, like, 2 different Reddit alternatives, right? The main ones right now, Lemmy and Kbin. They're cross-compatible with each other, meaning that I can make an account on a Lemmy instance, because maybe I like Lemmy's interface more, but then I can follow Kbin subreddits. Kbin calls them magazines. I can follow a Kbin magazine, a community on there, and it'll show up in my Lemmy feed. And I can browse it from Lemmy, from my Lemmy instance, and then and like look at posts and leave comments and reply to people and make posts to that community and all that. All you have to do is just to find it is go to your local instance and just type in the URL. Just copy paste the URL from the main or from the one that you're trying to go to if it's on a different site, a different software, right, or a different server. It's really easy once you get the hang of it and you figure it out. Yeah. So what are the big things that are I think that this is okay. I think that the more that I learned about it, I was like, this is gotta be. It's like the mirror of NFTs and like Web3, where Web3 was this big. The hype around it from all those annoying people was that Web3 was going to be the future of the internet. It's going to be the future model, and everyone, I feel like, who was reasonable looked at it and said, this fucking is stupid. This is dumb. You guys are lame. And it did not pick up. Federation is like the inverse of that. Where I feel like I was looking at it and I was like, this is the model. This is the model that I want the internet to have. I want this to take off. It also, they have a shared problem of the people who actually understand how these things work are really bad at explaining them. They are really bad at putting into like simple terms how they work. Like once I figured it out and I got through the initial like what is going on? Can I log into this? Can I not log into that? Once I figured out how it actually works, I was like, okay, this is actually not that crazy. The problem right now that's holding it back is, number one, education and just people not knowing about it. Number two is a lack of people and content. So there's some decently sized communities. There's like a couple, you'll find a couple on, Lemmy, for instance, who have like 20,000 subscribers to their community or whatever. Like, that's pretty good. What it needs really, that's kind of an outlier. There's not too many that have, it needs way more people and it needs way more dispersion across more of the network. Specifically, it needs power users. It needs people who are willing to dump posts upon post into these things to provide content for people. Specifically three things, okay? Specifically three things. It needs memes, artwork, and pornography. All of those. It needs more. It needs a lot of it. Because social media, people will like sell social media as like it's a way to connect with people around the world, and like, yeah, it technically is, but really the way that most people use social media is that it's an all-purpose time filler when you're bored and you're like, what do I do? I'm bored. I'll look at my phone for a few minutes. That's what people use it as. And it needs more. And what are the universal time fillers? Memes, artwork, and porn. Things to make you laugh, things to make you go, ooh, that looks nice, and things to make you go, ooh, that looks nice. That's what keeps people coming back and engaged and building it into their habit to check the social medias. What I'm saying sounds very predatory right now because that's just how social media works. Buddy. And like that's legitimately what's holding it back. What I think is the big thing holding it back. And it's a very, like, it's kind of like reading. I used to be like, oh man, reading so hard. And then I actually started reading a book and I was like, actually reading is super easy. Reading books is really easy. It was just because school made me think I hated reading. And it made me dread opening a book because I didn't give a fuck about what was happening in it because it was a signed book or something. And it burned me on the whole medium so badly. And then you actually start reading stuff that you like. And you're like, wait, hang on, this is actually really easy and pretty enjoyable too. It's kind of like just engaging with any other medium, like listening to music or watching a movie. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, it's like it's the hurdle is starting. The hardest part is starting, and when I say that in regards to Federation, I mean quite literally. Like there are people who would be really down to just dump a bunch of shit onto these platforms, but how are you gonna do that? You have to like start. If you have the people, okay, you would have to like start a community. There's enough existing community. What it needs is it needs mods. It needs people to come in and start communities and to start instances. And people don't want to mod. Not that many people want to mod. I don't think. I don't want to mod. Once the gate is open and someone's taking care of that, and someone's modding and maintaining a server or an individual community or something like that, then that's a lot easier. It opens the path for like power users to come in and post a bunch and add value to those communities. That's really what it needs. So when will that happen? I don't know. The nice thing is that these are not companies. This is, I think, the best thing about it. It's been this interesting process on the internet. The internet began as a highly decentralized place where everyone just kind of made their own thing, and it was separate, and you could link to each other, but for the most part, you were owning your own domains and things like that. And then the money came in, and people were like, what if we had places to bring all this stuff together? You get some really good things, like you get places like Wikipedia, or other larger wikis, places to like, instead of having a bunch of separate websites to look up geology for your school project, what if you had one website with one web page? Dedicated to combining all this knowledge and information with citations. And it was the one-stop shop, the centralized dictionary for anything, and it could be updated. Oh, perfect. Money idea. Wikipedia is like independent. It's like relies on donations, so it's a little bit of a weird example. But then you got things like Facebook, I guess, is like a bit of a weird. It's also a bit of a weird, because it was just like, hey, a social network. It was like a big novelty. Oh my God, Facebook, MySpace. You got these places where you can talk. I guess just more developed versions of stuff like IRC chats and AOL and things of that sort. Blogs. Yeah, it's kind of just blogs. It's like a centralized place for blogs, if that makes sense. You got places like Reddit, which is like, hey, how about instead of having 1,000 different forums, what if we had one website that you could make little sub-forums on for specific communities? Boom, money, kind of. That is was the trend for the last 10 years about, YouTube. One place with all the videos instead of just uploading it to your own little website where no one's going to see it. One place with all the videos where you get recommended other people's videos. Wow, everything's together. Everything's in a big network. And then the capitalism thing started happening where these got really big and business interests, and the founders start moving on to different, greener pastures. And then changes start happening, and they get more out of touch with the user base, and it becomes a big fucking nightmare. And oh wait, actually online advertising wasn't as lucrative as we thought it was. Oh no. We have to rely on investor money. We have to make these stupid decisions. Oh no. All of this information and this gigantic platform can just be purchased by fucking Elon Musk, an actual fucking idiot. An actual idiot who thinks that the word cis is a slur. Dude, the first thing I thought of when I heard that, there's this old Norm Macdonald bit from his podcast where it's from like 2015, right? Which I think makes this very impressive. It's from like 2015. He's got this like Irish comedian on, and it's from his podcast, and the whole Norm Macdonald podcast is him fucking with his guests, playfully, I suppose. And he asks him at one point, would you consider yourself a cis male? And the guy looks at him. He's like, "What is 2015? Remember?" And he goes, "A what?" He's like, "A cis male, I guess, MALE. Would you say you're that?" And he goes, "What is that? I don't know what that means." And Norm goes like, "Well, you were, born like as a man, right?" And he goes like, "Well, as far as you know, yeah." And he's like, "Yeah, as far as I know, and you identify as a man to this day. Is that right?" And he goes, "Yeah, I still do consider myself a man." And Norm goes, "And that makes you a cis male." and the guy goes, "What is the?" Because 2015, he goes, "What is the purpose? Why does this term exist? What are you talking about?" And Norm goes, "It's a way of marginalizing a normal person." Fucking love Norm. Every trans person I've told that joke to finds that fucking hilarious. And the first thing I thought of was Elon saw that and he took it a little too seriously. God, it's so funny. I don't want to go on a whole Norm Macdonald side tangent to this other tangent. It's so funny to like watch that. I rewatched that clip because I was reminded of it. And it's so funny to go down in the comments and see people who take Norm Macdonald seriously on anything he says. It's so funny. Like, oh yeah, this is the point in time. This is the moment he's gonna take a stand, and for the first time in his like 40-year career, make like social commentary. He's like the least social commentary of any social or political commentary of like literally any comedian, which is shocking for how like horribly offensive his material is. He really was just like a fucking living bit. His entire life was devoted to being a joke. I love Norm Macdonald. Nothing he said was ever serious. And these fucking guys come in, they're like, yeah, he really knew that it was he recognized it for the slur it was. Like, oh my god, you're the type of person he would make fun of. Dude, if someone said that to Norm Macdonald, like, yeah, like, it's a slur, he would probably just, like, go really hard with, like, really, I think that's a little insulting to the I think it's a little insulting to the honest racists in the crowd, or something like that. He'd probably drop, like, a hard R or something to, like, fucking shock the shit out of you. Yeah, anyway. That shit can't happen with a federated network. You can't just buy... There are, like, developers, right, who develop this software, and I guess they can add worse features to it. But, like, if they do... Remember, this is all open source. Someone can just make a fork of the software that just doesn't have those features. And then, I don't know if you could, like, maybe... I don't think you could replace the server, but there's at least, like, alternative. It isn't just, like, Twitter made it... YouTube made the thumbnails have rounded corners. Fucking, I guess I just have to deal with that now as someone who makes thumbnails for my job. No. There is an alternative. You're not just fucked. A single website, a single website, a company that has to justify paying its graphic designers and its UI designers, they can't just fuck you over as a user anymore. That's like one of the great strengths. It's decentralized, but it's also, or federated is the better. When you say decentralized, it brings up like Web3 crypto stuff, and that's really not what this is. Federated, right? That's the term. It's federated, but also because of the protocol, because of the nature of how the protocol works, also connected. It's separated in very key ways. The ownership is separated. Oh God, is this a commie thing? Oh, that's why Lemmy. I think Lemmy's run by the developers of Lemmy are all like fucking militant communists. They're all like tankies. They're fucking kind of weirdos. But like, hey, you can just make a fork of it, or just start your server on an instance that is not run by them, which there's many. Or you can just use Kbin and browse Lemmy communities from Kbin. See, isn't that awesome? Imagine if Elon Musk bought Twitter and you didn't have to put up with his shit at all. What if you could just ignore him and get all of the same content from Twitter without his shit? Wouldn't that be great? You could do that. It's separated in very key ways, but it's connected in the important ways. And I think that's what's great about it, is that if it actually gets off the ground and enough of the projects get to a point where they're actually really polished, because unfortunately a lot of them are a little they're a little rough in interface and functionality. They're missing lots of features that modern centralized social medias have. But once they get there, and I think they will, because this is all just like these passion projects, I think they will, I really do. Eventually, a few years down the line, it's not ready yet, but I think it will be. I think it will be, and at that point, it will be at a point where for the user experience, it is almost the same. Like, you have to pick, a server, you have to pick an instance that you like, that you trust, for instance. But I think even with that, there will probably be servers that are run by larger, maybe like a company or some kind of like community that's very trustworthy, right? That you can trust they're not going to shut everything down, something like that. So you don't have to worry about, the security of your account or all that. For the user, it would be almost the exact same like barrier to entry as regular social media, which is creating an account. There's one more step to creating an account, which is finding an instance, which for most people is too much. But if you make the process really easy and just remove that barrier, if there's enough people, the content will be enough that it could be an adequate replacement for the current kind of like paradigm of centralized social medias. I think that landscape, the future, my utopic federated future, I think it would be so good. I think it would be so much better. I think we'd be living it up, man. We would have it so good. I'm so sick of these fucking companies getting bought out and being controlled by investors and shareholders, and feeling like, also because it's like my job is one of these, right? And I honestly, I don't think that there's ever really going to be a federated replacement for YouTube, because video costs, like server costs, are too high for that. There's one, it's called PeerTube, and I think I saw one. I was looking, all the major instances say like, yeah, there's like 5 gigabytes of upload storage per person. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, it's not happening. I think after that you might have to like pay or something. It's not happening, dude. I'm sorry. But like, having you, I'm gonna be honest, I love YouTube. I really do. I love this website in so many ways. It's such a big part of my life. I really do. There's so many people that I would be a completely different person if it weren't for YouTube. And I like the person that I am. I think YouTube is really good for me in a lot of ways. Beyond paying me, right? But fuck, I hate this company. I hate them as a company. It's like when you're really proud of your country, but you hate your government kind of thing. I love YouTube as a platform. I love so many of the people here. I love so many of the communities on here. And I really mean that genuinely. And YouTube gets so much shit all the time for being a shitty place. But really, there's so much good stuff. And if you just know how to control like what you're shown and what you see, and you just interact with creators and communities who are like cool, and you try not to get sucked into horrible algorithm wormholes. It's there's so much wonderful gold here, and then just this garbage shit happens company side, right? Like official side, and it's like, god damn it, you know? God damn it. If I could live in a world, and I guess I don't think YouTube's ever there's gonna be a true federated alternative to YouTube. I might be proven wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I doubt it'll happen. But if for all the other sites, you know, if we don't have to deal with Reddit being assholes to their, the volunteers who moderate their website and pricing app developers out of APIs so that people can use the shitty Reddit mobile app that sucks and just shoves ads down your throat because it misses the idea of the original Reddit, which is that it's just like a bunch of forums and it's about forum communities, and they're like, no, it's got to be like Twitter and we're going to shove 1,000 ads down your throat. Hey, guess what? Not going to happen with federated servers. It's not going to get to that point. I guess like maybe individual admins of large instances could be bought out, but hey, just move to a different instance. It's easy. The whole thing isn't fucked. You can just move. You can just make a new one. We can rebuild. Such a better model, such a better long-term model, so much like consumer, average user friendly, no ads, none of that shit. God, I want this to take off so badly. I want it to take off so bad. I can't say that like you as a viewer, as a listener right now, should switch over to a federated thing. Consider checking one out, you know. There's big, again, it's content, right? There's a couple of ones that you could find that have some decent discussions and stuff like that. I've been kind of going a little 50-50. What helps is that someone made a bot. So someone made a bot on Lemmy that you can post to it. It's a bot that runs its own community, and then you can post to the community the name of a subreddit on Reddit. And then the bot will automatically make a community that on Lemmy that will just grab posts from that subreddit and just repost them as as it works the same way as like an RSS feed. Only title and post. It's like only title and like text content. You have to go to it includes like a link to the original post if there's an image or if you want, or a video, or you want to, read the comments or something. But like you can browse Reddit specific communities. So then you can then follow that. It makes a community that's just a repost community from a subreddit, right? There's a lot of layers going on here. And then you can follow that on Lemmy, but actually, because again, cross-compatible thingamabobs, you can be on Kbin if you like Kbin more, and whatever I don't like the developers of Lemmy. I am going to support Kbin instead. And then you can be on Kbin and follow Lemmy communities that are reposting stuff from Reddit. It's insane, but it works. You can have it all from one place. It's fucking crazy, but it works. So I've been kind of going 50-50. And I'm rooting for it. I myself am not like a power user. Like I'm just kind of a lurker and a browser. Maybe I should I'm so anti making my own little community thing outside of YouTube. Maybe I could make like an official seller, thing. Like a seller instance, or so not an instance. Sorry, an account on an instance for a seller thing, like a Pleroma instance, a Mastodon one. Who knows, right? Maybe I can make one somewhere else. And in the future, all of these can have some form of cross-compatibility. It can be built in, which is cool. I'm waiting a little bit. I'm waiting to see if it develops a little more. I think it will. I think this Reddit thing has introduced a big wave of new users to Lemmy and Kbin. More people are getting informed about the model and all that. It'll be slow, but it's also like, again, not a company. None of these are companies, so they can't like fold. They can't go under. So there's not really a risk to investing into it in that sense. It's not like, oh, well, Dig is going to get fucked. Remember Dig? They're going to get fucked and just die. I think they're still alive as like a weird zombie. That's not going to happen. The projects will keep trucking on. And in maybe, let's say, the next 5-10 years, I think they could really be at a point where they could supplant the current model. Yeah. Well, man, my voice is tired. I'm going to go, render this and then lay down. My brother got me some cookies from Safeway. Some crispy chocolatey chip cookies. There's 2 more left in the bag. I ate one before I started because I wanted a little sugar. And I'm thinking about them, and I think I'm going to have them tonight. And then I think I'm going to have a little treat. Anyway, if you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question because I'm not just going to read your thoughts out loud. New video, trucking along. Podcast. Wait, this is podcast. Patreon, main channel. Anything else? No. Bye.